guys can write in the back. That's scary. So this presentation is going to be about questions, and I would like to explore the art of questions, asking questions, and ways to ask questions, how they can have a big impact in organizations, especially from leaders of organizations, as you progress through to becoming leaders, or you already are leaders. So it's all about questions, and there is audience participation, so wait for that. So how can I do this? Well, I came up through the ranks as a software engineer, all the way up to an EVP. I rolled Agile out across our organization, which is a global organization, so China, India, Europe, America, before I became independent. So as I rose up through the ranks, one of the questions I got really good at asking was, can I have that next job, please? But that's a whole other story. We're going to focus on other things I learned by asking questions around how to spread information through an organization and how to make teams feel safe with the questions that you ask, and how to know, especially in a distributed team, if the information has translated or if the information has actually been accepted by the group that's expected to do the work. Does that make sense? My mouth is really dry. All right. First thing is we've become numb to questions, right? We have got used to people asking questions that don't really require an answer. And we ask questions that don't require an answer. We ask questions also that only require a yes or no answer. Right? So, how's things going? Good? And it's all day, every day. We ask questions, we hear questions that are meaningless. Yeah? So what we want to do is move from that to asking questions that are way more powerful than that. And as technical leaders, we're promoted often, I certainly was, because of our knowledge. And because we're promoted for our knowledge, we're very happy to share, to tell people what to do, to give that knowledge maybe in a way that is not inspiring. I certainly was. So we rise up through the ranks, we're able to keep things going. We can spin the plates, right? We have lots of plates going, we know how to spin those plates. We keep the plates in the air. You're really good at keeping the plates in the air. Let's move on up. Oh, what does that mean? Okay, well, I'm spinning these plates. I'm really busy spinning my plates. Well, you have to move on up. Okay, well, what else do I have to do? Oh, no, all the plates are on the floor. What am I going to do now, right? So you can't move up and spin plates at the same time. You can't always grow your business and spin the same plate you span today, because they're different plates you need to spin tomorrow. So what do? We've got a big pile of stuff that needs to get done. And I'm really good at spinning plates, so I need to help other people to learn how to do it, right? Because that's how I move. That's also how my company grows. And then if we can get teams of people who are able to do this, as Susie was saying, now we've got a we can all spin the plates. We all know how to do this. We can all work together. It's not just one person who's a single point of failure. Yeah? So we want to multiply that. So it's a chance to, when you're multiplying, there's a teaching element. You're teaching someone how to do it. But the teaching element then eventually has to transition into an asking. Right? So you teach, but then you have to transition into check. You ask. You have to check. Did you understand? Do you now know what I taught? Yeah? And not in a know-it-all sort of way, but in a curious way. Because if I ask you and you know and I'm curious, I find you don't know, I can help fill gaps. Right? This is assuming what you know, what you don't know. Make sense? Okay. So, questions can empower. So if I say in this room, I don't know, let's see, I hope. If I say in this room something like, where's the best place to go in Prague? If you're a local, you might feel like, oh, I have something to share, right? And feel good, right? Empowered, you feel good, you know something, you can share it, you're sharing from a position of knowledge. I might narrow that down. If I say, where's the best vegetarian place to eat in Prague? You might be like, oh, not feeling so good, not feeling so empowered. Maybe you don't know the answer to this question. Right? So, with a question you can empower, or you can like, I don't know. So make sure that, so be aware of that, right? People need to know or be able to answer you before you go asking the question. Don't ask questions you know they don't know the answer to. If you ask it in a curious way, though, if I ask, hey, where's a good place in Prague? And you say, well, I only moved here 2 weeks ago. We can start, now that's a curious question. We can start a different conversation. I now know more about you, and I can start to work with that. Okay? Same thing in a technical environment. So now I know what you don't, or something new, piece of information, I can start working with that. So my challenge for you, we have 2 minutes, is to, in pairs, share some questions that you might use, you either currently use, or you might use in your work, that you like, that you can share with your partner, or that you would think about using, that might empower someone, and then ask the question with your partner. Does this question empower? Ask back and forth. Does that? I'm getting a few curious brows. I'm not sure. This is making sense. I want you to share some questions to see if they're the types of questions that would feel good in your workplace. Yeah? Makes sense? Only 1 minute. I'll give you 1 minute. Go ask each other some questions. See how it works. Okay. Did anyone come up with some good questions? Certainly got loud, so that's good. All right. So how can questions unstick? Have you ever been in the driver's seat of a car and you're going along and you're not the driver, and then you get to your destination and then someone asks you about how to get to that destination, you have no idea because you weren't driving the vehicle. So if you have a difficult problem you're trying to solve, and as a technical manager, the manager is like, oh, let me show you, and takes it off you and drives, then you're learning less. If you get stuck and they're looking at you sort of, what's next? What could you do? Not necessarily in a car, in a technical situation. Asks you, what can you do next? What's your challenge? What are your options? Those types of questions, it gets you thinking, and you stay in the decision. You stay in the owner of the problem. Okay? So, and again, it's checking to see whether the person is following or able to connect those from a technical perspective, what needs to get done. Okay? So you're checking what needs to be done. What you don't want to do, though, again, is come from a position of, I'm going to ask you a question, but only my answer is good enough. So I'm asking you a question, but you've got to say this or that, right? If it is a decision like that, it's one or the other, then I would encourage you just to say, hey, no, this is, you don't want, you're not going to let people hurt each other, hurt themselves, or to do something that's going to cause quality problems, major issues with your software, or anything like that, right? So obviously you're going to use it in a, you're smart enough to be able to use it in the way it's intended. So you're helping people get unstuck. So again, if people come from a sense of responsibility, if they own the problem. So if I tell someone, you need to have this done by Friday at 5 o'clock, I might that they could get it done by Friday at 5 o'clock. If I say to someone, when do you think you might be able to get this done for me, and they tell me something, they tell me an answer, someone asks me and I give them an answer, I'm way more invested in meeting the timeline that I stated because I stated it, because it was my decision, right? So you tell me Friday at 5 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I've got all these other things going on, but I might, like with the man, Zuzi's example earlier, that trying to switch, that pretending to turn a switch that doesn't exist, versus you asking me and me being able to tell you, and then we move forward from there. Now, if Friday at 5 o'clock's not good enough, we can have a conversation around that. Well, Friday's a bit late. What else have you got on your plate? What other things are you working on? Right? You're still opening that up. I say a lot of times we limit ourselves when we don't ask questions. So when we make assumptions about what people's capabilities are, we might give them tasks that are what we think in line with their assumptions. So I take it. My example usually is, if I say to someone, "Can you jump? I'll pay you so much money. You need to jump 2 feet off the floor. You jump 2 feet off the floor every day, and I'll pay you X amount of money." And they like jumping 2 feet off the floor, and they're bored, right? Because they know they can jump more than 2 feet off the floor. So they're jumping, whatever. Just paying me, I'm going home. There's nothing, no investment in that. If I say to someone, how high can you jump? And they say, I can jump 3 feet. Great, let's jump 3 feet. So now they're doing something that they've set their own bar to, and it's way more than I expected, but I didn't know that if I made an assumption about that. If I assumed they could, or if I stated that as a limit, right? Last year we saw this exact example in Progress. There was a limit of, you have to close this many tickets every week in order to meet this goal. And what we saw happen was some teams hit the limit on Thursday and took Friday off. This was the client, it wasn't my company. And then other teams were still frantically working Thursday evening to try and get their stuff in. Some people have taken off. So you can imagine how well the team spirit was there, right? Oh, they've all gone home. They're all still in work, right? And every week you got this, right? And I was like, let's just take it off. Let's just say we've got this big load of work. Let's see how quickly we can get through it. Let's see how many we can get done. Not just say, you team have to do 250, you team have to do 250 because we've done the math. Right? And everyone is different. So if I get bogged down with a really, really hard one, well, I'm going to be sat there for ages because I'm bogged down with a really hard one, but I might, if no one's looking, throw it back on the pile and pick an easier one. Now someone else has got the really, really hard one. Right? And some of that was going on. So it's not good. Right? So that sense of, I can't remember why I've done that. Ownership. That sense of ownership is really important. All right. So, here are some go-to questions for you. Now, Deborah, who's my co-worker, has put together this amazing types of questions handout. It's a handout, but we can give it to the organization, put it into it's a PDF, and it's got some great questions on. Here are some that I like. One of the questions I had in the learned in a coaching camp. Here's a good one for you. Personal coaching camp. And the question that I learned there that I've used multiple times since is to the answer of I don't know. You ever get that? You ask a question, you've got an agreement, it's a meaningful conversation, and then the person doesn't really want to go there. So you ask a question, it's a tough question, and they say, I don't know. And now you're dead in the water, or I used to be. It's like, oh, I don't know, they don't know. So the question I learned to ask is this one right at the top. What if you did know? It's an amazing question as an answer to that question. I don't go try it on your kids tonight, but just saying. What happens to her? What if you did know? And answers come back. It's quite fascinating. You dig that little bit deeper, and that answer comes back. Okay? Another important question up here that I love is this one over here on the end. As a leader, people challenge you less and less and less, right? And especially when you're a technical leader, because you were promoted because you have the answers, you have the knowledge, right? And so now you're trying to spread that, but people might tend to not want to challenge you. And we found, I don't know if you guys have read the research about the Google research about what makes a performant team. It was about a couple of years ago. And one of the things they found for performant teams was psychological safety, right? So feeling like it's okay to challenge, or it's okay to have a disagreement, we will recover, yeah? So how do you challenge your leaders? How do you challenge your leadership? Or how does leadership make it okay to challenge them? So that's where this question comes in. I found that if I take an idea to a team and it's fully baked, right? I've put a lot of effort into it, and I show it, and I say, what do you think? Guess what? No one thinks anything. Yeah, looks good. Right? Great, let's do it. If I say, hey, here's an idea, I've put effort in it, it's a really important idea. What are the major challenges with this idea? What do you think could go wrong with this idea? Now I've invited that. I've encouraged people to say, well, you might find this, or have you thought about that, or what if this happened? You're inviting it in the way you're asking the question. And you're making it safe. Does that make sense? Okay. So making a safe environment through asking questions. Open questions are questions you cannot answer with a yes or no. And some questions can make criticism safe, like that one. That's the one I use around is what are the challenges with this? Okay? So why don't you try and ask some questions? Just 1 minute, I'll give you another go. 1 minute. Try some of these questions, okay? And see how they work. I know it's difficult, but you could do it around the context of this conference, right? So what's trying to happen? What's trying to happen here? Everyone's trying not to talk to each other. That's what's trying to happen. Let's try that. Okay, 1 minute.
What changes do you see with
what is your biggest challenge?
shared experience?
don't know, sounded like you were having fun. It's good for me. All right. So, watch out for the tone of your question. You don't want questions to turn into an interrogation. What? What's next? How are you going to do that? Where are you going to go next? Right? That's not it. So watch out for your tone. I can say, so what are you thinking? And that sounds quite inquisitive, quite curious. Or I can say, what are you thinking? Right? Exact same words, totally different meaning. Right? So, yes. So think about how you ask the question. Okay? Tone is important. And then, here's a tricky thing when you're learning to ask questions. You have to listen. You have to be able to listen to what the person's saying to be able to ask the good question. And we think that we can listen. We listen right along with what the person's saying. And that is not true, because we speak at 125 words a minute, but we process 400, which means our brains are going like this while the other person's talking. Can't help it. We're human. It's what happens. So that means that when that person's telling you a technical problem and you know you're the technical expert, your brain's already spinning off on, oh, well, I would do this, and I would do this, and I would think that, and here's the answer, and now I'm ready to tell you what to do. Right? So if you know that it's okay, you're human. It's like I was telling someone that about meditation the other day, right? You breathe in, you breathe out. You breathe in, you breathe out. That's what you focus on, right? If you're anything like me, your brain immediately goes, so, what am I going to say in my talk tomorrow? Where am I going to go for dinner? And it's okay. And the person I was talking to when it is, I thought I was a big failure. Like, bring your thought back. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. So it's the same when someone's talking. Your brain is going to go off on tangents, right? The trick is bringing your brain back to what it is they're saying. So you're going to go off on these tangents, but come back. Recognize it. What is it that's important about what they're saying? Come back to what it is they're saying. Keep coming back, right? Know it, and it's not bad. You're a human. Come back. The one thing you don't want to do, fall asleep. Don't just doze on while someone's talking. You gotta pay attention, right? Because if you pay attention, then you're asking questions in service of them. That's the key to this presentation, right? You want to ask questions in service, not to show off how knowledgeable I am, not to make you make a mistake, not to interrogate you, but to serve you, to help me help you, or to help you find your way. Okay? So there are definitely times not to ask questions. Sometimes you have to be directive. Get an ambulance, let's fix this. Right? Don't ask a question. Right? There are other times not to ask questions too, when someone's really down on themselves and they're already beating themselves up. Oh, could you have done better? Oh. And they can't think, they're flooded, they're embarrassed. You can come back to it. Okay? So definitely times not to ask a question. And the worst sin of all with questions, in my opinion, don't ask a question for which there is only one right answer. That's called manipulation. I believe every single one of us in this room has been manipulated in our past. How many of you were told to clean your room? Yeah, right? Classic. Would you like to clean your room? No? No? Yeah, go clean your room. Wait a minute. My 11-year-old godson taught me this. We'd come into London airport and we were stood with our baggage and we're waiting for a hire car to come and pick us up. He's 11. I'm talking to his parents. They asked me a question. I answered the question. He leans into me. Very helpful. And Judith, That was the wrong answer. I'm like, what? He goes, I assume he didn't see me as an adult because he says, adults always have a right answer. I think he meant his parents. But, so, don't do that. We've experienced it, right? So you're not asking a question for which there's only one right answer, your answer. If you ask a question, the negative or what isn't your answer has to be an okay answer. So you're not going to ask a question that says, would you like to clean your room? If the person needs to do, that isn't a good example. Would you like to put your code back? No, right? Oh, use GitHub. Or right, you do your timesheets. Now, would you like to do your timesheets? Well, no one likes to do their timesheets. Well, no one I've ever met. It's, you need to do your timesheets by Friday at 5 o'clock. Right? It's a directive. It's not, don't use it as a manipulation. So we're right on time, and the question I have for everyone in the room is, I know it's lunch. I didn't mean it literally, right? I know you're all ready for lunch. But what's next for you with your journey to learn how to ask good questions? Okay? And that's my talk.